I'm in a stations, it would be nice also to shade more of the plate. Those little trees just popped in there at the bottom to shade more of both the playground area, which means planting trees perhaps within it between the two, the existing section and the section that we're adding. And I didn't include those slides, but I found a park that did that beautifully. And it gave it a very natural look. It even changed the elevation a little bit between the two sections. So that's also something really, next please.
Dave, do you want to sit here?
Oh, no, I can look over, I can just loom over Caleb.
Okay.
No, if you need me to move, I can.
No,
I just
no.
remember when we were going through it, I clicked through it a little faster and we were over and like that. So we still got it.
But we know what we're talking about.
We took another 10 minutes, I think.
Yeah, so, then this is just an example of some of the native plants, and then some non-native plants you'll see like Russian sage. So my suggestion in these areas, which really are the intersection of most of the pathways, whether they go north, south, east or west, is to have little demonstration gardens. And this can be an educational focus also in the park area about what's native, and then maybe in another area what's not native, adding something like Russian sage and some of the other kinds of trees that we know work but are not necessarily native to this area, like the Mancana ash.
So having, excuse me, to having them identified too, so those, when somebody said, what's that? They.
Exactly, the
Flaggers.
little tags that you'd see in a botanical garden. And, you know, I think that would be where the town would reach out for help from members of the garden club to maintain things like that and to suggest what might be planted.
So implicit in all that is, we're hoping the flowers, for example, are tough and they will survive with minimal maintenance, right?
Plus we can create the appropriate spaces by
What about
shadows
deer?
and orientations and other trees.
What about deer?
Well, that's a problem. That's a problem at Hermit now, that's a problem throughout town.
You bet.
But we're learning to manage it by what we plant. Sometimes it's, you plant a demonstration garden and you see what really does well and what you're not going to plant next time. So we have, so I would also suggest things that we already know. If you'll back up one to the grasses, or where was that? Was that forward?
We need the grasses.
Yeah, the grasses, I think, are going to be an important component. And in what you have, just for your own information, we have native grasses that are pretty unappealing to deer.
Yeah.
So it's nice to use that as a background for a lot of areas, and especially, like I said, the fences. So now we're going to look at the northern zone where we have, and this is where you'll have to bear with me and use your imagination, because it's very hard to depict these kinds of three-dimensional objects. But we were suggesting two large berms on either side and encroaching into the area that is currently the baseball field, which is very underused but provides a nice flat surface. So next slide, if you will. This is our baseball field now. And so we're going to suggest adding a larger berm on the north of that baseball field and perhaps a smaller berm on the south. And these, we envision them as being about 12, maybe 12 feet high or 15 feet high. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And inside the berm, so here's the baseball field as it existed. So now using just a drawing tool to give you an idea that the berms are neither, I want to say, they're just not piles of dirt. They've got to have contour, they've got to have some ins and outs, and then they've got to be really initially seeded and planted with both the grasses and then what we can find that works, named yucca, things that are tough and will survive on its own. So the interesting thing about this is it can be a lot of things inside. Originally, this is where we considered the dog park, but now it's more of a pass-through, but perhaps could still be a dog-friendly area because it would be easy to clean up, being more of a flat surface. So now, using the northern side of the north berm to put in a small bike skills path, and it doesn't really look that it would be that big, but it is. The area is large enough for the pathways as they're shown in beige. And because of the contour that we'd be creating with adding a hill, a small hill in that area, it expands, of course, the actual area. So here's a little overview right now of the bicycle entry on the north east side, the shelter possibly up there that would also be for walkers, people with dogs that they're going to pass through the park, and the bicycle skills area. The shelters, often you see them with bike racks, and there's already a bike rack there on that northeast corner of the park. In the center, again, the heavy vegetation, the lower berms, the transitional areas as you go down toward the play area, the sand play area, not necessarily an oval, of course, but just as a volleyball area, the new shelters and the pathways as you go around. What we've also suggested at the top of this is a pathway leading to the arch. And we haven't forgotten about the arch. It's just in process, our thoughts on it. So again, this is more of what we've taken from nature, and we hope the surface of the berms will look like. Here's a picture of a similar situation. This is actually in a park that exists in Colorado. Here's what we're envisioning if we drop that into that north end. The only difference being along this side, we'd really like to see a lot of trees planted there and some boulders really more around this area to confine anyone on a bike. This area also could be multi-purpose in that just hiking and walking, and that's what I've seen when there aren't bicycles in these parks. So it doesn't have to be big to be enjoyable. Wooden structures aren't necessary. They're kind of nice here and there, maybe for a little jump. Thinking of liability, we're not suggesting any, backflip type ramps. But the little inset picture also shows what's possible. Yes, sir.
Observation on the bicycle path thing that you had, any place that was open that an older kid can ride his bike, he's gonna do it, or they are gonna do it, like go over the edge of the path and down the,
Yeah.
down the berm or whatever,
Yeah,
cause
that's what they do, right?
Yes.
So I think defining the area with vegetation, shrubs.
right, make it
and-
difficult for them to go
Yeah.
off of the path.
I'm just thinking too, because we'll be building a new sidewalk there for trail on that north edge. And that's based on your photo there, it was the existing spot, that zone between there and gonna be the edge of the sidewalk. We don't have a plan like there, are we, as far as putting any kind of parking? In other words, utilize the rest of that space, get rid of the fence. I'd like to see the whole chain link fence go. Get rid of that. It takes away from all this creativity you're doing. I mean, we're not trying to keep anybody in or out, are we?
No, deer, really, just deer. Just
But do
But the parents
That's
like
not
to
gonna work.
see a fence that helps you to keep their kids from getting out into the street.
We put the chain link fence in. I was opposed to it, by the way. I don't remember, I wasn't mayor, but, for safety, children running out on the street.
Okay.
That's why we put it in.
What was that for?
For the chain link fence, I don't remember when the board did it. I know that, what's his name was our town man, and, He died here a few years ago.
Squire?
Yeah.
Squires? Squire?
No, before Don Stewart. Anyway, regardless, we put it in because he was concerned, and I agree, that kids could run out into the street.
Oh,
And, especially on Herman. I have some questions. I can't stay too much longer, but it's a great presentation.
Well, I'll blow through this one pretty quick.
Okay.
With the last few slides, and this is if you were standing on the east side looking west between the berms, we envisioned an entry going in and not necessarily an entry opposed to it. Here's some ideas for some things that could go inside on top of that flat ballpark area. And you could even put in play features, whether it be for kids or for dogs or for whatever as you walk through. And then retaining the inside area of the berms could be accomplished by rock, boulders, whatever. And again, this slide was added just to give you an idea of how you could create some mini climates by this contour. And also some walkways out of it on top, but again, defining that very northern area and keeping the bicycle people in that area. I think it will be creative. We also suggested on the front berm to add something like a dry creek bed just as an interest. And we took our inspiration from nature, and this is maybe what we'd envisioned as the lower one. And then again, we want to say throughout the park, even though I don't show it, because again, it would be hard to see everything, but we would suggest adding a lot more shelters, freestanding picnic tables, and a lot more trees. So again, demo rock gardens with plants. And then if you were standing on the other side of the creek bed looking into the berm, hopefully, maybe not that big, maybe not that elaborate, but you'd see natural areas. That's the point of this slide. So again, this is the north section, the center section, the southern section, and an overview of multi-purpose use of this particular park. And as I said, we really haven't given this, we've given this consideration, but the ideas have not gelled. So we didn't want to totally think that we want the trustees to think we had forgotten Hermit. This was the shelter there, the pavilion as it looked years ago. We're looking, this is the way it looked earlier this spring. And here's a nod for the garden club who's been busy. And we are suggesting, again, this is an overhead view of the trees that exist. We took the measurements. We realized we needed to maintain that soccer field in that open area, but perhaps in the next 5 to 10 years, we'd have enough use of the areas and of the parks that we might need another pavilion. The pavilion in the upper right-hand corner being added would be raised. The earth there is on an upslope and there's a good drop off. So if sometime in the future fill could be added and then allowed to condense, then that would be a great place for a pavilion. And you'll see the little connecting area that has steps up, or you could go all the way around and come straight in for handicap access to that area. But that could also serve as a performance stage. And that whole area, open area, could be on-ground seating or people bringing their, should it be needed for a performance of some sort, music, whatever. So another thought would be to add the area of a tennis court at the bottom of the 2 tennis courts that exist. And in that area, you could get 4 pickleball courts, or you could create part of that for a basketball court. So, thank you.
Bravo.
Very good, very good.
How much time do you have left, Paul?
I can stay another 15, 20 minutes, but, I just want to, first of all, I think you've done a terrific job. And, just a couple of things. I don't like chain link fence either. And what I did in my yard, was because I had deer were eating it, and we did like $3,000 worth of damage one winter. I had Carl just I just took some 8x12 remesh, 8x20 remesh. He welded up a fence, so I have an 8-foot fence.
You can't see it, I can't see
Doesn't have
it.
to be doesn't have to be 8 foot high.
Or keep the deer out,
Pardon me?
to keep the deer out.
Yeah, it works like a charm.
The thing that I've thought about is we have open places for people to get in the park. I don't think we can keep the deer out.
Well, you'd have to be able to get in the park, clearly, you have to have some sort of a gate or whatever that people can walk through. And as I was sitting here, it came to mind, but by the same token, I don't think the deer are gonna be in the park when people are in the park, I don't think so. I've never seen a deer in my yard during the day. I mean, before the, so, I'm just saying, that's the first thing. And then Caleb, you have to figure out the maintenance costs on this thing. How many people you're gonna need to have. I mean, this is gonna be a big job,
Yeah.
keeping this park maintained properly. So that's gonna be,
Maintained, okay.
yeah, ongoing maintenance, mowing, weeding.
Well, I'm not seeing any mowing, a little bit. Way less than what we have now.
Well, whatever it is,
Whatever
it is.
Yeah,
It's still, and irrigation, now those trees hang on the permit park, I think Rick put those in, they were pretty big trees when he put them in. So, I mean, they continue to grow, but still, they were pretty big when we could talk to him and see how big a tree we could transplant into those places. So that's just another thought, coming up in my mind. I mentioned older kids, there's nothing to do, all that. I've heard that all my life, but, we don't have a swimming pool, and we don't want a swimming pool. We have one at the fitness center. But, what do kids do? Older kids do. Most of what I saw is for younger kids,
With a bicycle thing.
bicycle
Or a
thing,
big
might be
bike,
the only
do that.
thing.
Elder ones do that.
But is there something that we could put in there, and maybe it's, Silver Cliff has a skateboard park. And we don't wanna, duplicate, so I'm just saying, just tossing that out. And the final thing is, two final things. One is, I think you guys have done a terrific job, but do you think it's wise for us to engage a company who specializes in park design?
Oh, at some point.
Yes,
To
absolutely.
put this into something that's,
Yeah, this was to give everybody an idea
okay,
of what we envision, and we're gonna need, even though some of the things we might do could be done even by town staff, for example, but we still need an engineering plan,
right.
one way or the other.
So I would suggest that, you say grants here, I would suggest what we do is we put in the budget for next year a number to engage this company who might help us, okay? To help plan it, and engineering might be a part of that, okay? That'd be the first thing. The second thing is, we have to come up with a budget for the whole thing. And we could do it in phases, especially if we do Hermit Park first or whatever, that's done.
I'll interrupt your growth here. I don't know how much time we have. We developed a little spreadsheet tool
Yeah,
that is a first cut only of the major tasks that we've envisioned.
yeah,
And I just wrote it, so there's 4 stages, and you can put in monies. We have an estimate of unit costs for these
Sure.
activities, and you can, as my engineers used to say, play with the numbers.
Yeah.
And you can try and tune this to show the high and the low cost. And
right.
so
So I got you on all that, yeah.
yeah, I'd like to, if we could demonstrate that briefly, that would be a good.
Well, let me just, I'm almost done here, but yeah, I'd like to see that.
So we're with you.
If we do the Memorial Park in phases, I can see it torn up for years. until we get it all done.
But it can be done just that way, though. I mean,
But I know,
Yeah.
my whole idea is go big or go home. Let's do it all, you know? Now, you think people are gonna bitch?
I like it.
People are gonna bitch about tearing up Just Price Park, I remember that. Why'd you tear it up during, well, you're gonna do it in the summer when the ground is not frozen. Anyway, but, and I think that GoCo and there are other organizations might go nuts about this, especially if we've done all this planning. And we've invested in engineering, and we've invested in all that with a professional group. They might, you know, but you never know, but then we can break it down into phases and so forth too, so.
We can add, you know. the
We can
price
add.
And how they can get go, if you'd like. Well, would you like to start with the estimator or the funding?
Can I make a couple statements, because I gotta leave here in about 2 minutes. I just have, in consideration of the current activity, I know they only use the park once a day, but that family fun day, they use almost the whole park.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they could probably maneuver around different things and be in different places, plus use maybe Hermit Park. I really like the water feature, like the idea of the boulders. In light of some of the comments that we've heard from people, I would think clearly about obstructing the view of the mountains from the park.
So
So,
on top of the mountain in the park,
And
you know?
and if I could just address that, our thoughts were, on the western side, it would affect the people on the eastern side, right, of the park as they're looking west. And so the idea, as I showed in that one slide, the buildings that are on that side, the houses,
Yeah.
behind them, you have some really big trees.
Yeah.
So moving them to the edge of the park, the biggest trees to the western side of the park. And then on the eastern side of the park, use trees that they're in their lifespan, they have a height of 20 feet.
yeah.
And then use flowering shrubs and other things to soften, but still have vegetation, just not have the towering trees that would necessarily obscure the landscape. And then the ones, because it is that distance on the west side, that's where we'd have the big trees and the more of the picnic areas. And these trees, in most of the, I hate to say it, but in the lifetime of those of us that might live on that side, those trees would never block the view in my vision. And that's what I would use to sell the trees.
I'm just concerned about the perceived view by other folks in the valley.
Right.
My last comment was, I have seen more people using the ballpark for, maybe not playing scheduled games of baseball, but people up there whacking the ball and catching it and stuff like that, than I have ever seen anybody using the soccer park over in Herman. So, does the high school use the soccer park? Do we have a soccer team?
We don't have a soccer team, but I've seen kids out there being trained or being, whatever, taught soccer.
Okay,
And they got all their little stanchions up, they've got goals and everything.
that's good.
But the softball field, they used to do T-ball there for kids. And I think that's all moved to Silver Cliff now.
I believe.
They're ball fields.
Now, the area between the two big berms, depending on how we executed that, is fairly large.
It is large.
So kids could,
Just to whack a ball.
Yeah.
That's usually what it is somebody's out there pitching to their kid and whacking the ball while kid B runs and gets the ball.
They could still, there would be areas where they could still do that, and as I see it as planned.
the
Just
other
not-
thing is
just
the
not-
berms. I think the last number we came up was, we didn't expect them to be much higher than what, 12 feet, 14 feet, something?
Something in that range.
So they're not Mount Everest.
The one thing I wanted to bring up is that Powell Street
Yes.
on the north side? Well, that's not really a street. I believe that's owned by the school or by the,
Correct.
Park and Rec. And the question is, can we get that from them? Because there's parking on the south side of that street. That people could use the park and go into the park. But I could envision a time in the future when somebody says, hey, wait a minute, no more, you can't use the street. It's our street, you can't use it. So we might wanna figure out, Caleb, whether or not they wanna sell it or donate it to the city or whatever. And that would be a nice, I'm not suggesting we increase the size of the park, I don't think that's necessary, but at least have that street under our control.
Well, who owns that?
I would agree with you.
That's all that, like,
It's the park and rec, I think it's the old schoolhouse.
No, it's the church.
Is it the Lutheran church that owns it?
It's split between the schoolhouse, which is the school, and Lutheran Church.
Really?
Well, who owns the school?
Do you mean the roadway itself or the parking lot?
No, that roadway is split right down the middle of the park, being the top order.
Huh, didn't know that, okay, well,
And,
Up there,
yeah.
and the entire western boundary, eastern boundary of the park, people do park along that, because that could be more developed into parking area. And the guys arriving at the bicycle path would be riding bicycles,
So,
hopefully.
but Mark, I'd like to see that spreadsheet, I don't wanna monopolize the meeting, but I just brought it up. I think it's great, I do have to go, but,
wanna see it real quick?
yeah, I can't see it, but I wanna see it, but I can't see it.
I'll explain it a little bit.
Yeah.
Caleb also has a document.
I have to go.
See it, John.
Place to be.
Caleb put a lot of
Thank you
thought.
very much. It was a very good presentation.
You're in a place. You're in a place.
So Caleb has a document on grants
I have to
and
be.
participation of different groups. And I think that's been handed out, right?
Yes, sir.
You wanna spend, you got a few minutes on that, and then we'll try to do real quick on the tool? Paul, or do you need to go?
Oh, no, I'd rather do it on the grants than the tool, but the tool I can kind of envision, but you can show it to me. I can't see that far, so.
Let me just do the tool 5 minutes. So this is I'm gonna blow this up so you can see it better. The way this works is I call it title, but they're really tasks. As a matter of fact, you changed it on your version, I think, didn't you? So I just chucked in a bunch of tasks. It's not all encompassing, but like large trees, small trees, as you can see, berms, big and small, rock walls, paths, irrigation, and it goes down into engineering and then very many other things. And then a target, for example, here, 65 trees of large variety. I just picked these numbers. In some cases, which I won't get into, I talked about, well, how do we know how much material we really need for a berm? So if we put in some dimensions here, convert it to yards, convert it to tons, and we then have a way of trying to cost it. And that was true for other things as well, rock formations, blah, blah, blah. So this is the targets sheet, and this is the list of tasks. If we then go to unit costs, it's the same list of targets, tasks, I should say. So here they are, the same ones. We have unit costs, which are the purchase and the labor. And actually in a later version, we had a little percentage. What did you, for a rough estimator?
12.5.
12.5% of the purchase could go in labor, but you can override that. You can put in whatever number you want. So we then have a total cost to install per task, per unit task.
Were you asleep? Did you move?
No, I said them. Charles pump a septic in his truck broke down.
Good, Mark.
Okay, so for each one, we have a purchase per unit and the labor per unit. And this is, Caleb's been working on trying to get real numbers for all of these tasks. And then here's where we can actually do the estimating. We have, again, the same tasks in the same order. We then have 4 stages. I didn't use the 4th one when I did this up. It's an option, I could have 5 stages, whatever. So in this case, 20 trees in the first stage, as you can see, 30 and then 5. That's the total number at the end of the project. That was the target that we originally said, and did we meet the expectation or not? But most importantly, and we can improve this, is the cost for each task over each of the stages, and then the grand total for that task. And likewise, at the bottom, the grand totals for each stage and the grand total for the project. So we can go in, let me just demonstrate this real quick. Let's just make this 50. Oops, not 520.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And
4 trees.
you see the cost went up.
Sure. So it's interactive.
It's interactive, yeah. So you could zero out one of these and say, forget it, we're not doing it, or we could add other ones as time goes by. So the accuracy then is dependent on our ability to do the unit costs and to have a realistic targets.
Right.
So at the end of the day, it is possible, in short then, to estimate the cost per stage, per task, and the grand total as well.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if I've got time for Caleb to go over his deal, but this tool exists, it'll evolve, we'll make it better, easier to understand, more flexible, blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah.
Well, let me ask you a question. When we did Just Price,
Mhm.
we got the basic plan done, then we put it out to bid. Is that
Yes.
the way it worked? We didn't really have an estimate of what it was gonna cost in advance.
We did, not at least the town, but DHM provided one with the designs of the park. So that will come with me.
Sure.
So it's over $500,000 for that. This is gonna be a few million, for sure.
Yes, so that's where we're getting to our next discussion is how to fund a park like this.
Just one comment on this. So I don't think any of us envisioned this being the last estimate.
I know.
This is to give us ballpark,
Right.
and what is our expectation?
Food for thought, right?
Yeah, okay.
So funding for parks, yeah, we'll start with grants. There's kind of two ways to do this. I think next year, like you said, Paul, we'll start by trying to get some designs. Though it's no rush, we can even do it in 2026 to get designs. And then after that, we'll go for grants. And like you said, get it one and done. That way we're not taking years and years and years to build something out that could take probably around a year or two to get done in the first place. So GOCO is just one of the grant providers. So this is kind of an overall document for the Westfield Parks Committee on different ways to fund all the parks in town. I'll make this kind of applicable to Memorial as we go through it. But GOCO has now a $10 million grant. It's called the Centennial Program. This is and it's in your underneath AF. GOCO invests in high value, once in a lifetime projects with lasting impacts for the state and future generations of its people. There was a study, and again, you can go through, before I go through the study on, a case study on how people usually get GOCO grants, we'll go through a few more. The state has a conservation trust fund, the Colorado Division of Parks and Outdoor Recreation, non-motorized vehicles trails grant, that can be for all trails within town or even the ones pictured above, outdoor equity fund programs, on and on and on. The Department of Local Affairs, if we want structures, we can reach out to the Department of Local Affairs for structures, such as a bathroom if we want to do. Tourism Cares, W.K. Kellogg Foundation, this is great at educational pieces aimed at children's or even for playgrounds. Arbor Day, if we want all these trees, we team up with Arbor Day as well. Daniel's Fund, this is for aging communities, amateur sports and disabilities, AARP as well. So a whole bunch of different types of grants that we can apply for. What we would do is that I would advise that we go after the GOCO Centennial Grant, which is a max of $10 million. We get this park done, we get Hermit Memorial done in one swing if we can. Now, in order to do that, we need a lot of community input. That is why the next part goes into community partners. We will partner, it should be done as if we are going to town will partner with all the nonprofits in the valley to get this done. Not only will we partner with them for fiscal uses, but also shows the GoCo, the grant writers, that, hey, we have all this community input. And after that, not only will they get we put this in a conservation trust fund to help with the maintenance, we'd give specific groups responsibilities in the designing of the park and of the future maintenance of the park, and maybe the initial funding of the park to be able to have specific areas like Colorado Open Lands. We partner with them, we put this into a conservation trust fund that will have its own amount of funding set up originally to help with maintenance for the years. American Legions and Veterans of Foreign War, we're wondering what to do with that memorial. I say we partner with them, and I've already talked to them, and they love the idea. We partner with them, we give them an area, they go after funding, they get this area done, or even with this grant, right? They give us an idea of, hey, this is what it would look like, different costs. And this is how we would take care of it throughout the years. Custer County Conservation District is another group. Custer County Kids Council, we partner with them as well. Hey, this is our ideas for the kids. What do you think about this? How can we make this better? Through the planning, and then throughout the years, maybe Custer County Kids Council, GoCo does stewardship programs. There are ways for people and children to go outdoors more. So what we do through this big $10 million grant, we do little stewardship programs. It might be a visit from the local school to go visit the park, right? Little field trips like that just connect the kids to the outdoors. We could also have the Custer County Kids Council, like I said, their annual celebration they have, the Custer County Kids Council, that can be funded through GoCo and their stewardship programs. On and on and on. Senior Citizen Center, maybe we have them help us with the trails and maybe exercise equipment if that's something we want. And pickleball courts, they help partner with the town and we get this done. Again, the overall goal with going through GoCo grants is getting as much community input and as much community funding as possible before GoCo even lifts a finger to even help out the park. That is one of the bigger, that's kind of the overlying goal of GoCo. And these grants will be insanely competitive, especially going up to $10 million. So that's why we partner with these communities. That's why I even want a separate group that focuses on something like this, like the West Coast Parks Committee, with all these different committees, and we get some ideas going. Frontier Pathways, maybe they might want to partner with the town as well, because this would be a unique tourist destination for the town. I honestly would advise that since we don't have too much attractions, that this park be the #1 attraction in all of Southern Colorado, right? So dream big, like he said. Education Legacy Fund, the High Country Recycling, even partner with them they go after a grant to get bear-proof garbage cans, not that we really need them, or maybe they just put recycling stuff throughout the park, throughout the exits. That way, again, it shows more community input. Obviously, having the garden club, they're with us. I'm just kind of skimming through this, so I'd encourage you guys to look through this and read this, if you can. High Mountain Hay Fever Bluegrass and KLZR Radio, those guys would be great to actually have an amphitheater at the Bluff. Like that was thought about before, that these groups like High Mountain Fever can actually move over to there and set something up on that downslope. Rebecca's Fund, that's another nonprofit for arts for children, having them come to the park, right? Creating a stewardship program that GoCo would help fund through them, that would just create more attractions to the park, bring the community to the park.
I'm on the hay fever, the profits they make goes to children's health.
See, there you go.
So there you go, that could be something.
That's great. And they could even do that for some of these stewardship programs, right? Some of their funding goes to children's health. If they wanted to partner with this park, maybe they do it for some of these, to get the kids outdoors. Sustainable Ways, Trails for All, Valley Strong Fund, I mean, just multiple partners. Valley is Hardware is a corporate partner. Other businesses in town we partner with, using our sales tax, and maybe even throwing a Parks and Recreation in the future, but that is just a out and about kind of thing. So this is just different ways to fund the park. Again, I think we go for a $10 million grant, partner with the community, and go after it.
I'm curious whether GOCO or DOLA or any of these organizations have people on board to help plan these kinds of projects.
They do.
So if you get started with them early, so to get buy-in very early to help us plan all this, that might lead to a better outcome in terms of granting. Now, you mentioned Arbor Day. I was at Arbor Lodge in Nebraska City. Everything great comes out of Nebraska, but they had this, they have all
Except
this
football.
stuff. Well, what they have is very interesting. As you walk through these trails, they'll have a footprint in the concrete. And they'll say, there's a little box like this. What is this? And you don't know it, you punch a button, it tells you. Or they'll have a footprint of a bird, and you hear what bird it is and you hear it chirping. At one point that you go through, and I got pictures of all this, they've got, it looks like honeycombs, but it's for the pollinators. What's a pollinator? How important is it? So bees, but there's no bees there, but still in all. But there are a lot of things you could do with this that was educational for kids and so on and so forth. But Arbor Day, yeah. You could approach the Arbor Day Foundation. I think that'd be great, especially in an environment where there aren't a lot of trees. Arbor Days got started because Nebraska didn't have very many trees. Now it's a big deal. So anyway, I have to go, folks. I'm sorry.
Good.
I want to talk to you before I leave. Can you start on?
One quickie. So we made the presentation. What do you envision, Mr. Mayor, happening next?
Well, as I said, I think, are you done with your work, first of all? Have you gone as far as you can go without?
I think at this point, yes. We're ready.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I think that the first thing we do is we try to put in the budget a number for 2025. And the budgeting process is going to start real soon. So this is very timely. A number in the budget for this hiring a firm to do help us plan and engineer. Make sense?
Mhm.
Because I don't think we can go any further until we know what exactly we want to do and what it's going to cost. And that might take the better part of a year to get all that done. And then at that point, at the end of that process, we'll have a very good idea of who we want to approach for grants, how much we want to ask them for, yada, yada, yada. If we break it down into trees, maybe we go for the Arbor Day Foundation or something. I don't know how that would work, but at least you'd have it broken down for 2026 and the steps we have to take to get from here to there. That's what I would have, I like to plan and then execute the plan. So you do it in stages or phases, or if we can't do it all at once, then we do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. That would be something we'd have to talk to DOLA about.
Sure.
To say, we want to do a big grant, whatever it is, $1 million, 2.5, whatever it is, whatever the number is. What do you think? They'll say, ooh, that's a lot. Why don't you do it in phases? They'll be more appreciative of that, or more.
Yeah, so we have the flexibility.
Yeah. So you could do it one of two ways, all at once or phases or whatever. So that's what I'm thinking. So
What about-
the board's gonna have a lot of input, we're gonna have a lot of input there.
Do we want to have an item on the next board meeting to discuss the board's vision of this? And does the board need to say, yeah, in general, we accept this plan, therefore go ahead and do the budget and all that stuff?
Let me think about that.
Yeah, because my thought was that we did that with Jeff Price, did we not?
With,
When the Parks Committee submitted ideas, they ended up going to the design firm. But at some point, I thought the board said, yeah, we sanctify this, go ahead and proceed.
Well, I'm gonna grab these.
probably for,
The question is that then, are we ready for the public to be aware of this?
And that's the second part of it. Yeah.
And so, do we want to do a better plan and then make the public aware of it? Or do we wanna, not, the public is, they're fine, they're welcome to this meeting right now. And, so, I don't wanna jump the gun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess I'm saying at some point there needs to be an anchor in the ground that says the board accepts some concept.
There's 2, 3, 4 members that, Chuck has appeared to be supportive, so what do you do then?
I don't, well, you can't make a decision in a workshop. can you?
No, but I can say, what do you think
Oh,
about doing this, putting this on the agenda, the board agenda?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. We've been working on it for a long
I
time.
know. Art?
Yeah. Sounds good.
Bob? Okay, we'll put it on, and you can handle that when it comes up on the agenda.
okay.
Okay, so,
Maybe
okay, we'll get it on.
like most agendas, of course, it would be relatively short amount of time, right?
Sure.
10 minutes or something
A minute.
like that. Do I hear three, 4?
Oh, you got 3 minutes.
And this is in the last page of that packet.
Yeah,
just so you-
good. I took a picture of it, but that's good. More better. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Good, okay, well, that's me at the adjournment.
Okay,
Right,
we are adjourned.
Amen.
we have to,
Bob's
We-
coming back.
we taking a break?
I got here in time to be adjourned.
What's that?
I got here just in time.
You did.